Welcome back. Once again, adventurers, to Let's Play ChäoS Child. And in the last episode, Takuru learned an unsettling truth. That in the midst of Uki's confrontation with Ito, he himself had manifested his own D-sword and used it to try and stop Uki from killing Ito in cold blood. Unfortunately, staining his own hands with her blood in the process. Shortly after that revelation, Uki's existence finally gave out, and the delusions that she had manifested returned to the Dirac Sea. But luckily, thanks to Kurusu and Sarika, and the power of his own D-sword, Takuru was able to return to reality, or so it appeared, because not only did Uki not have any wounds on her body whatsoever, there was also the very distinct possibility that Takuru was trapped in a very different delusion. Yeah, there was a lot of Inception things going on there, but this time we're back on the beaten path. And this time things are about to unfold in a very different manner yet again. For there is one more ending on Uki's route to be achieved. And we are going to walk that path starting right now. And Sarika is now here as well in the alleyway, it seems. Along with Kurusu. Because after all, Takuru had rushed out of Aoba Dorm because Yui's life was in terrible, terrible danger. Interesting that you would save me instead of us. There, Sarika. Everything started to fade away, and then for a moment it all came back. I could see Kurusu and Sarika holding me. Yamazori was clinging to me too and crying like a little girl. Which she is, obviously. Indeed they are. I was terrified of dying, to be honest, but at least I wouldn't die a sad, lonely death. There were people crying for me. I'd always felt sorry for myself. And I never realized how blessed I was. And then everything went black. And the moment approached for me to cross the boundary between life and death.
Oi, Taku?
Of course, there is no reason to go through all this again, so I shall see you all up ahead. And for the final time, we're back here at Takuru's RV at Miyashita Park, at least in this instance. where he is wondering just what the contents of Yume Aozaki's letter might be, little realizing at this point that that is nothing more than a pseudonym for Ms. Uki Yamazoe herself. This time, it's time for a little bit of positive, even if it is the wrong idea. Anyway, the fastest way to find out was to read it. That would give me a clue as to whether it was real or a prank. Well, in reality it is neither. I cut off just a tiny piece of the top of the envelope and took out the letter from inside. The letter was written on pretty pink paper that matched the envelope. I started to read the contents of the letter.
なになに突然のお手紙でごめんなさい。けれどもうこの溢れそうな思いを
私の小さな胸の内だけに閉じ込めておくのは苦しくて切なくて今にも胸が張り裂けそうで。
Of course. Little does Takuru realize that, yeah, Uki is telling him the things that he wants to hear.
このお手紙だけで宮代先輩に私の思いすべてを伝えられるかどうかはすごく不安です。それでもやっぱり我慢できなくて。
Of course, with that said, even though Uki is playing to Takuru's delusions, she is still using that as a means of actually expressing her own genuine feelings towards him.
だから思いの丈すべてを込めて筆を綴ります。これまで私はずっと宮代先輩のことを見ていました。知的で何でも知っていて、それに新聞部の部長としてたくさんの人から慕われていて、なのにそれをひけらかすことなくいつもクールで。その眼鏡の奥に隠されたまっすぐな瞳を見るたびに、私の心は締め付けられるように苦しくなっちゃうんです。そうしていつしか私は宮代先輩の虜になっていました。最近では寝ても覚めても宮代先輩のことばかり。このままでは私はどうにかなってしまいそう。もちろん私なんかが宮代先輩のような素敵な方と釣り合うとは思いません。でももしも宮代先輩が少しでも私のことに興味を持ってくれるのなら、最初はただの後輩としてでもいいんです。先輩、私と真剣にお付き合いしていただけませんでしょうか。
Just reading it was enough to make me feel dizzy. I was ashamed that I had ever doubted her. God damn it. I could feel Yumi Aozaki's pure innocent feelings for me pouring forth. Joy burst from within my heart.
一人のいたいけな少女をかくも虜にしてしまうなんて、僕はなんて罪な男なんだ。
You know, in a twisted sense, you're not wrong. I ran my hand up and back through my hair and adjusted the rims of my glasses, then sighed dramatically.
これは
And then I saw it. At the bottom of the letter, there was an 11-digit number to a phone that doesn't really exist. Was that a cell phone number?
お返事待ってます。
That was what it said in cute round letters next to the number. My throat went dry and my stomach started to clench.
電話で返事しろってことか。
She wanted me to talk on the phone with a girl I'd never met before, and one who was supposedly the prettiest to come along in a decade. Serica and the guys in the newspaper club were one thing, but I still got nervous talking to my classmates. I was asking way too much. It is really nice here at Miyashita Park at night. I realized I'd been standing there clutching the love letter for hours. If I waited any longer, I'd lose the chance to call her. Come to think of it, it must have taken her a lot of courage to write this letter. So if I didn't respond, Serica and Kurisu would get mad at me. And not only would it be rude to her, it would go against my own sense of morals and etiquette.
よし。
I gathered up all my willpower, took out the phone and dialed the number on the paper. And then I tapped the screen with a trembling finger. And it started to ring. The wait was torture. I had to try my best to stop from hanging up. And then she picked up.
あ、アニョ。
I stammered. I totally screwed that up. Yes, you did.
僕、その。
I tried my best to start over. That's not Uki. Was this Aozaki's voice? No. No, it wasn't. No, that's definitely Serica trying to break through the delusion. Taku. How'd she know my nickname? That's because that's not Uki. That's Serica. Huh. This voice, was it? Indeed it is.
尾上。
No way. I know I entered the right number. And as muffled as that is, by now we should all recognize that voice. That is Kurisu. This time it was another voice. That voice belonged to...
Kurusu ka?
Yeah, the real Seruko Noe Nano Kurisu. What was going on? Why was I talking to Seruko and Kurisu? That is an answer that will reveal itself in due time.
もしかして
Maybe the girls had sent me that letter as a prank? No. First of all, neither the letter nor this phone call is a prank. No, but wait. I could see Seruka and Ito doing it, but would Kurisu go along with something like that? Kurisu wasn't the type. There was no way. And... they sounded like they were talking about something really urgent, which it is. It didn't feel like a prank or an act, because it's not.
尾上どうしたんだよ
And why was the connection so bad?
セリカ、とにかく今は伝えるべきことを先に伝えないと。だね。
My heart started to beat faster. Unfortunately, the reception between delusion and reality is kind of iffy. What was going on? What were they talking about? Well, if they could tell you, which they really need to, they will. There was so much noise on the line it was almost impossible to make them out. And they seemed like they were in a big hurry.
よく聞いて。いるのはね、おとなしじゃないの。だからお願い。タク、早くして。
Unfortunately, the distortion is cutting off all the important parts.
おいさっきから何言ってるか全然聞こえないぞもっと電波のいいところに
If only they could, or if only you could. But alas. Huh? What was the sensation I was feeling? Or was I... Oh right, the phone. I was on the phone. I looked at the phone I was holding, which is still trying to call. A person who doesn't exist. Technically. It was still trying to connect me to Yumi Ozaki. There were no signs that she'd picked up, and I couldn't hear Seruko or Kurisu at all. My head felt so confused. And what was that? A dream? But it felt so real. The ringing continued. Just when I thought she might not pick up, it connected. But of course we've been through this song and dance before, so I shall skip ahead to where we need to be in space and time. Well, we've finally made it back out in reality, and it seems, with everything pretty much playing itself out from Another Sky End right up into this moment. I sat up and asked, So how is Uki Yamazoe? She said she was sleeping next to me. But they're still looking dejected.
タクル、よく聞いて。ウキちゃんは
What happened? A cold sweat appeared on my body when I heard those words. It couldn't be. Maybe she was already. I slowly looked around. And there she was.
ウキ。
I could see her resting quietly on the other side of the curtain that separated our beds. And the comforting sound of a life support machine beeping normally. Which means that for the time being, Uki Yamazoe is still alive. Her eyes were shut and there were tubes attached all over her body. I could hear a monitoring device near her beeping at regular intervals. That is a sign of hope if ever there was one. A small sliver of hope, but hope nonetheless. She was alive. But then why had Kurisu and Seruka acted that way? Well, I think I can surmise why. That was because if Uki was indeed in her own delusion like we were, that would explain why she is unconscious, but her delusion is now nothing more than myriad possibilities roiling around in the Dirac Sea. What did that?
冷静に聞いて、タクル。のんちゃん、何も今言わなくても。
I think we have a right to know.
いや、
In fact,
いいんだ。尾上。
we need to know. I kept my eyes on Uki as I spoke.
クルス、教えてくれ。ウキは。
I've been ready for it. But when I saw it for real, I still didn't want to believe. But I had to face it anyway. This wasn't the dream world anymore. And she was the one who told me to come back.
ウキちゃんね、一命は取り留めはしたけれど、脳に受けたダメージが大きいって久野里さんが。
はっきり言ってくれ。クルス。ウキは治るのか。
残念だけど、このまま。
So we can surmise either one of two things. Either the destruction of the delusion caused some sort of mental backlash against poor Uki, or the fact that she remained behind in the collapsing delusion when Takuru escaped resulted in her ending up in a coma of her own. She slowly shook her head. Instantly, my heart felt like it was going to freeze. I'm sorry, but I tried to understand the meaning of those words. Uki would never wake up again. She would never talk again. she would never smile again. Never. And it's all that Takuru Miyashiro can bear at this point. I forced my aching body out of the bed.
大丈夫。
Seruka and Kurisu rushed to support me, but I waved them away. Like a sleepwalker, I staggered over to Uki's unconscious body. Well, she's still breathing at least. Her breathing was irregular but steady. The machine was beeping. I couldn't see a single scratch on her face. She looked as if she could open her big round eyes and laugh at any second. But suddenly I was assaulted by a wave of emotion. This is no fairy tale, Takuru. I softly touched her cheek. Her silent body was so warm, and I... all I did was cry. For a girl who said that other people's happiness was what made her happy. For a girl who risked her life to save me.
ありがとうございました、タクルさん。
Those were her final words.
私は夢の中でほんの少しでも憧れの日々を送ることができました。
But the girl who smiled as she said those words. Was there anything I could have done for her? Could I have given her happiness? I think you did. You already
この
have.
子、ありがとうございました。 嬉しかった。
And the days passed. Many springs and many summers and many autumns came.
それじゃあ行ってきます。
いってらっしゃい。気をつけてね。
今日もいい天気だな。行こうか、ウキ。あっちは人が多いから、こっちを回ろう。
So Takuru decided to return to live at Aobadorm for Uki's sake. I wonder if she actually has regained consciousness. Maybe.
それとも向こうの方がいいか？わかった。それじゃあ向こうから行こう。
Shortly after, Uki's body had recovered to the point where we could take her off life support. But it was only her body that recovered. She didn't talk or laugh. She just stared into space like a doll. Her mind had gone someplace far away and still hadn't come back. Kunosato said it probably never would. And she was probably right. My one wish was that wherever she was, She'd found the world she'd always wanted. All I could do was pray and spend each day with her. It was the only way I could atone.
あ、タク。
And there's Serica. I turned around just in time to see Serica run up to us.
よう。
今日もお散歩？
まあな。
そっか、いい天気だもんね。
Serica smiled at Uki and then looked up at the bright sky.
悪いな。最近あんまり一緒にいられなくて。
私のことは気にしなくていいよ。私はタクがそれでよければいいんだし。
Serica looked at me.
タクはいいんでしょ？それで。
Of course, the best thing would be for Uki to get better, but that was too much to hope for now. So I would do what I could for her.
まあ。な。
This was the path I'd chosen.
だったらよし。
Serica smiled, satisfied at my answer.
じゃあ、私は行くね。ウキちゃんも、またね。チャオス。
She said a word she probably picked up from someone else and left. Probably Hinai. I watched her go and then we started to walk again. We took each step slowly and carefully.
そうそう。それでさ、ユウトが。そしたら父さんがさ。
No matter what I said, there was never an answer. But I kept talking and waiting for the day when she would someday come back.
Oh.
Sometime later, I stopped in front of a small store. I'd spotted a planter, and I'd seen a certain plant lined up in front of the others at the florist. A Schäffler, God damn it, I can never say that right. It was the plant I'd given to Uki as a present for her room.
嬉しかった。
And now we can do so in reality. I thought I heard her voice and quickly turned to look at her, but that was just a memory of a delusion. I just imagined it.
そうだよな。そんなこと。
And then,
ウキ。
eyes like glass beads quivered for a moment. For the first time, a genuine response. And a single tear ran down her cheek.
ウキ。
She didn't speak. Her expression didn't change. But still, she was there. And someday,
ああ。ウキ。
the world was constantly growing, expanding, and evolving. Even if it left the two of us behind. I'd spend my days with her. I believed that someday she would come back to us. Until then,
僕が君の世話をして生きていくよ。いつかやってくる 君の幸せのために。
I didn't know if that day would ever come. But until then, I would keep believing. Always.
ねえ、タク、叶えられた？やりたいこと。
I don't know, Serica. You tell me. Dream Sky End. Achievement unlocked. Butterfly. A much better ending, if I do say so myself. If only, slightly melancholic. But that brings Uki Yamazoe's character route, Butterfly, to its end. At last. And when we return, adventurers, there is one more person's route that we need to tread down before this is all over. But before we end the episode, another piece of the shattered glass has been restored. But for now, I shall leave you all and see you in the next episode. As always, adventurers, until next we meet.